One of the things I've really been, no pun intended, focusing on in my business is focus and following one course until success in one area of my business.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures, and successes. I am so excited to bring you our special guest today, Jenna Atkinson. But before I introduce you to her, I have a quote for you. Paul Samuelson said, "Good questions outrank easy answers." The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. Jenna, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Neil, I am ready. Thank you so much for having me.
Jenna, it's a pleasure. Welcome to the show. As the president of Jenna Atkinson Consulting and host of the Growth Bomb podcast, Jenna helps organizations and individuals reach their next level of success. She speaks, trains, and consults nationally on topics related to personal branding, networking, business development, and marketing strategy. She writes for several professional publications, including Success Magazine, the Huffington Post, and InBusiness magazine. Jenna is the 2014 40 Under 40 recipient and a 2013 Athena Young Professional Award nominee. Jenna, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
Absolutely. So I am based in Madison, Wisconsin in the United States, and I do a variety of things. My background is in professional services, marketing, and business development. I worked for 3 top 100 financial firms and ran their business development and marketing strategy and implementation. And from there, I decided to branch out and start my own business. And now I work mainly with professional services firms as well in a business called Jenna Atkinson Consulting. Really creative marketing name, I know. Mm-hmm. And I work with professional services firms to do training and development with their emerging leaders to help them with things that essentially help them build a book of business. So gaining skills in efficient and effective goal setting, how to accomplish their goals faster, how to build a strong personal brand, how to create a network of influencers, build strategic partnerships, ask for referrals, and basically a lot of soft skills and sales skills. I also host a podcast called Growth Bomb, where I interview top entrepreneurs and executives twice a week, and we talk about strategies for business and personal success. And then I have a membership site and speaker series that also go along with that part of my business.
Okay, you sound like you're quite busy there then. Do you have any examples of the types of things you've done for people in terms of your coaching? I take it that is coaching that you're talking about, some of the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, I tend to stay a little bit away from the word coaching. I feel like people sometimes don't always have the best thoughts or representation of what coaching is about. And I don't do too much one-on-one coaching anymore. I work mainly with larger organizations, and I create training programs for what they call their basically partners in training. So their millennial staff, a lot, maybe Gen X a little bit, but I'd say between ages 25 and 35. And I build their basically development and training program to help them build their career success, and if it's relevant or makes sense, their book of business of new clients.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about helping them generate referrals. How do you do that?
I think the first thing that sounds really simple, but a lot of people fail to do it. And step one of getting referrals is commit to asking for referrals. And I think a lot of people are scared to do that. But when it comes to asking for referrals, it's a win-win situation, in my opinion, because if you're working with a client and you ask for a referral, they're either going to have one of two answers. One, they're happy with working with you and they're more than happy to refer you to other friends or contacts or clients because they feel like they're adding value to that person in their network, which is great. Hopefully that's the case. If not, the only other response is they don't want to refer you people because they're maybe not happy or completely satisfied with your service or product. And then if that's the case, it's a great opportunity for you to hopefully correct any problems or dissatisfaction they're having and hopefully retain that client instead of losing them.
Mm-hmm. So at what stage what stage do people ask for a referral in the process of dealing with them?
I typically recommend after your first closed piece of business. So for example, I work with a lot of accountants. So a great time to do it is when you're meeting with a client, maybe going over their tax filing. And especially if they got a return or you save them a lot of money, whenever that first round transaction is completed, especially if the results are good, that's a great time to discuss with them what the process was like, what their feedback is about working with you, and then ask for that referral.
And what do you enjoy most about what you do, Jenna?
Oh, there's so many things I enjoy about what I do, but I think the cool part about being a business owner is you really get to pick and choose who you work with. And I know a lot of business owners are under the impression that any client is a good client, but I am totally of that mindset because if you have clients you don't like working with, it's going to drain the joy and excitement and passion out of your business. So one of the things I really enjoy is getting to work with people that are excited to work with me, and I get to see the results and positive impact. The things that I can provide and services I can provide for them are really generating results in their business.
Mm-hmm. And what is it that drives you?
What is it that drives me? I think one of the things that really drives me is, and this, I kind of got this idea from John Lee Dumas, who's a mentor and friend of mine. He hosts Entrepreneur on Fire podcast and does a variety of other projects as well. But one of the things that he always talks about that's exciting for him, and I feel like I'm in the same place, is he calls it the ripple effect. So seeing the things that you do inspire other people to make changes or start new projects or start a business or do things that in turn affect other people. So it's that ripple effect, the things that you do, branching out to affect a larger amount of people.
Now, you described the types of things you get involved in, Jenna, and you said an awful lot of stuff, so it sounds like you're very busy. But what do you do when you're not working in your business? How do you relax?
I don't know if this is quite relaxing. I mean, it is for me, but it's a little bit business related too. And that's just, I love to read. I go to Barnes & Noble or the bookstore and it's like, I buy them faster than I can read them because there's so many different topics and biographies and subjects that I'm interested in. Talking to a lot of successful people on my podcast and through my business, I've found that, a common trait that a lot of them have in common, pretty much all of them, is that they're avid readers and are passionate about continued learning. So if I have a free minute, I'm listening to an audiobook or reading a book or listening to a podcast, just always trying to learn new things. And I think that's also not only relaxing, but beneficial for my business as well.
And do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
I think the one I mentioned is the biggest one that I've been following and learning from right now. John Lee Dumas, host of Entrepreneur on Fire, he just created a project called the Freedom Journal, which I'm absolutely obsessed with. I love it. It's a tool that helps you accomplish your biggest goal in the next 100 days. And I've always considered myself a goal-oriented person, but using this tool has really brought it to a new level of focus and efficiency. So I love it.
Jenna, what I'd like to do now is talk about the time before you were an entrepreneur. What difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Well, I think like anyone starting a business is scary to take that leap. I had a great corporate job, a steady, awesome salary. And so even though I had money saved, and I had a little bit of a cushion for a while, it's also, hey, you make or break your own success. So I think that's nerve-wracking for everyone. And I think another thing is when you start a business, you are the business. So any weaknesses you have will translate into the business. You don't necessarily start with a team that can compensate for those things. So for me, for example, I'm more of a big picture person. I'm an action taker. So little details or administrative things I don't find enjoyable, and I personally am not good at. So I think that translated over when I started my business. I struggled or was nervous about maybe setting up some of those processes or getting those details in line and making sure they were taken care of.
Mm-hmm. So when you actually started your business, did you go all in and do it and quit your job, or did you start it part-time while still having your job?
Oh, I absolutely started part-time while I had my job, kind of testing the waters, talked with some people that would be potential clients, and got their opinion, feedback a lot of times. There's a great book, Ryan Levosque, and it's called Ask. And basically it's about just ask people what their opinions are on your business, on your potential clients, if the things you're providing are what they would want to purchase, because without sales, you don't have a business. So absolutely, I started asking those questions and trying to build future clients before I even opened the doors of my business.
Mm-hmm. And at what point did you decide it was the right time to quit your job?
Neil, I don't know if there's ever a right time. It's like any big decision in your life. At some point, you can only do so much preparation, and it's do or die. So I felt like I had done my due diligence. I had some people that I felt would be great starting clients, and they were excited to work with me before I started. So I had a chat with my boss, who had always been a huge supporter of mine and is to this day. My previous employer has been a client of mine and supported a lot of my entrepreneurial endeavors, even since leaving their business. So I think at some point you just got to take the leap. I don't think there ever is that perfect right time.
And did you have any doubts that delayed you starting your business?
I think the biggest thing is just, I don't know if it's a doubt, but just a fear that any entrepreneur has, and that's you are your business. There's no one writing your paycheck anymore. And I was confident in myself, my ideas, and my business, but that's still a big hit and a risk to take. So I think maybe if anything that delayed the start a little bit is just, hey, you're not having anyone else write your checks for you anymore. You got to get out there and hustle and grind and make it happen for yourself.
So what mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
There's always mistakes. I feel like without the mistakes, you're not learning and you're not challenging yourself enough. Like I mentioned before, I think there's a lot of things, especially in the beginning of my business, that I spent money on that I probably didn't need at that earliest stage. For an example, I had read a lot of articles about, outsource the things that you aren't good at and have someone else do that. So like I mentioned, I'm not a huge details or administrative person. So one of the big expenses I had when I started my business is I said, okay, I'll take that advice and I'm going to hire a virtual assistant. So I had a virtual assistant that could help me with a lot of those things. But at that point in my business, it probably would have been better for me to just bite the bullet and take some time to learn how to do those things first. And then as my schedule got fuller and I didn't have the time, then I could transition some of those things over. But I think really being more spending conscious would have been beneficial in the beginning. I spent a lot of things, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do this too, on kind of the vanity entrepreneurial things. Like you need cool stuff for your office and a cool business card and flashy, website and flashy videos and professional pictures. But really, you could be doing all this stuff to generate sales and spending money in that area instead of some of these flashy business things that really aren't bringing in direct cash for your business.
Mm-hmm. So do you still have a virtual assistant now?
I rehired one, yes. So in the beginning, I don't think it was worth the spending. But like I said, once my calendar got more full and I had really specific tasks that I knew I could outsource, then I do think it is worth the investment. It just needs to be at the right time.
Yeah. It's just interesting that you say that, because a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start, really get bogged down with stuff they know nothing about, and they end up feeling busy, but they're not really making any traction because they're too busy learning how to do things that really they should probably be outsourcing. So I'm just curious to see how that worked out. So you got rid of your virtual assistant until you got busier, and then took another one on. Is that what you did?
Yeah, I did that because I think the big thing in the beginning is I was just doing it and I wasn't exactly sure of why I was doing it. It was kind of that idea of outsource what you don't like or what you're not good at, but I wasn't quite sure of what the specific tasks were that this person could be doing for me. Then a little bit further down in my business, I said, okay, now I have A, B, C. I just send over this list and this is something that you can do like clockwork every week for me. So it's really systematic and more of a process, where before, when I first started, it was like, well, I don't like doing this. So can you do this one thing? How about this thing? Do you know how to do this? So it's really finding the right match for a virtual assistant, and also having a really clear idea of what the tasks are that you would like them to accomplish.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that you did before you started your business that'd be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken the first step on the entrepreneur way?
I think you need to be really, really clear about where you're going to generate your revenue. And I think there's a lot of things in business. Like when I first started, I thought my business would be more focused on marketing and business development consulting. And I still do a lot of speaking, but both of those things are really one-off revenue generators. So every single month, every time I would get a speaking engagement or a client, I would complete the work and it was project-based, and then I'd have to go out and sell right away and find a new one. What I think is a lot simpler is finding ways that are recurring revenue streams. So what are the things that you can build up, get clients, and you know that you're going to have that income every month? It's okay to have those project-based or one-off sales too, or clients too, but those should be on top of something that you know will be there every month, and it will relieve a lot of stress in your life. So be clear about your revenue model. Be clear about what your goals are for your business. And I would say another one is be really, really clear on your ICA, your ideal client avatar. So who is the specific person that you're creating your business for? So for example, for me, I have a person, their name is Alice. They work at an accounting firm. They're 31 years old. They're looking for a way to build their book of business. Some of their biggest struggles are she's a great accountant, but doesn't really know how to build relationships. She doesn't know how to give a great presentation. She's really bogged down by administrative tasks instead of working on building her book of business. That's just a brief description, but the more clear you can be about who your ideal client is, what the biggest problems are that they're facing, the more that you can craft your product or services directly for that person.
And do you find that most of your clients tend to think that everybody should be their customer?
I think that's a common misconception. Yes, it goes back to that idea that every client is a good client. And what I think you'll find is really that is a huge pain in the butt for both you and them. It will lead to dissatisfaction, I think, on both parts. And it's draining. You don't want to do that. So the more that you can really, really narrow down and find who your niche is, there's plenty of people in the world that are going to fit that avatar. I found very few business owners, products or services that are too narrow of a market to be successful or profitable. So the more you can narrow that down, the more your clients and prospects will love working with you, because they're going to feel like you made the product or service specifically for them, which in fact you did.
Jenna, what I'd like to do now is just talk about the entrepreneurial journey a bit more with you now. So do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
I absolutely think it's important. I definitely think it's even more important. And I know everyone's sick of hearing about millennials, but especially for millennials, culture is make or break whether they want to work at an organization. So the way that you lead your business, the way that you communicate with your people, the expectations, it's all incredibly important to working with and recruiting and retaining top level talent.
And how do you find a lot of businesses are conscious of the importance of culture?
I think a lot of newer businesses starting are, because they can create that culture from the very beginning, and they are more aware that it's important to potential employees and partners now. I think it's more difficult for established businesses, especially ones that have been around a long time, because what culture was like when baby boomers were first entering the workplace was much, much different. And I think a lot less important than it is now. So maybe turning around some of those businesses that are already established or changing the culture there is a lot more difficult.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
I think there's a big value in having mentors, and I knew that in the beginning, but I think the place that I had a misconception was that any successful business owner would be a good mentor. And what I learned was what's really effective and helps skyrocket your success much faster is finding someone exactly in the position that you want to be in the future, whether that's a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. But just because someone's a successful executive or entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean they're the right fit for a mentor for you. For example, I love reading books by Richard Branson. I think he's a great entrepreneur, obviously one of the best in the world. But for me, he would not be a good mentor. I'm not looking to start an airline. I'm not looking to start a record company or record label. I'm not looking to do the things that he did in his career. So although it's cool to learn from him and some of his ideas, he isn't the best fit for a mentor. So if you're starting a business, find someone in your specific industry or the specific job that you want to have and learn directly from them, because it's going to accelerate your success by leaps and bounds, because they can fill in those blanks and help you avoid some of the pitfalls that maybe they experienced.
And how much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
It does a lot. And this is a funny question, because my husband is an engineer. So he is very much Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, go by the numbers, go by the facts, the stats, the data. And I think that's an interesting difference between people that are truly entrepreneurial is they need the numbers and the stuff to back it up. But me at least, I'm much more influenced by, hey, I think this is a really good opportunity because of this person or because of this feeling or because of this opportunity. So I maybe let my gut feelings and instincts pull me a little more than it should, but I've been successful so far following that path.
And has your gut instinct changed over the years in terms of how much it influences you?
I think it has a little bit, especially in the beginning. I was drawn much more to that feeling, and it still definitely has an impact. But now, being deeper in my business, I'm a partner in a couple other businesses. I'm much more interested in the numbers and data than I probably was in the beginning. So although the gut feeling still has an impact, it's probably not as much as it was in the beginning.
Life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not, and many say the only constant in life is change. Jenna, how do you try to keep up with change?
I think it's exciting. I love change. I am always looking for new opportunities, for ways to get better. Like I said, I'm not afraid of failure. I think the more no's you hear, the closer you are to a yes. So I embrace change, and I think most of the most successful businesses and entrepreneurs in the world are in that same boat. You need to constantly be adapting and changing. The world's a fast-moving place, so complacency is a silent killer. Always be learning new things and always be taking new risks.
So what types of things would you do to keep up with change?
Well, I'm fairly young. I'm a millennial, but I think I was speaking at a conference in California a couple weeks ago, and it was a conference for collegiate entrepreneurs. So they were like 18 to 25-ish, so younger than me. And I was telling them in my bio before I spoke, they read off, some information about me. And one of the things it said was that I was a recipient of a 40 under 40 award, which, is supposed to be this young professionals award. That's this honor for younger people. Well, after the presentation, I was talking to some of the college students about their businesses, and they're asking if I needed interns. And I do work with a couple of interns. So I was telling them how social media hasn't really been a focus for my business because that isn't typically where I get my clients from. So I haven't really put a lot of time and energy into that, building that presence, because there wasn't a direct impact on my business in the beginning. And they said, 40 under 40, that's old. You need 20 under 20. So I just laughed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be like feeling young, and I just got called old by these like 20-year-olds. So I think even if you feel young, constantly be looking for not only mentors who are farther ahead of where you want to be, but be talking to people younger than you and getting their opinions and their ideas. You need to find out how you can implement the things that are important to them and use their strengths as well to grow your business from, people that are older than you as well as people that are younger than you.
The thing is, Jenna, you're only old if you let an old person move into your body.
That's right. That's right.
What is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Yeah, like I said, I love to read. I have stacks and stacks all over my office, so I could list off a whole pile for you. But I think the one that I recommend the most is called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And it's one of my favorites. It's about building relationships and a strong network. And the reason I absolutely love that book, it's one of the first ones I read years and years ago when it came out. But I feel like it's truly, truly impacted my business. And I know it's kind of cliche. It's not the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But it's so, so true. The more you can build your network with the correct relationships and add value to those people, the quicker you'll see success in your business. And this book talks all about how to go about doing that the right way.
Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you're at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you've not already signed up, then you will qualify. Jenna, what I'd like to do with you now is speculate about the future a bit. What one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
I like to think that I take risks and do all of those things already, Neil. But like you said, there's always a couple things that maybe hold you back. And for me, I think one of my strong suits is not technology. And I do have some online courses and a lot of online infrastructure. So I think if I knew it wouldn't fail, one thing I would do is invest a lot more money in infrastructure and development of online learning courses and some of my technology there.
What skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
To double my business. That's it. That's a good one because I feel like I'm growing pretty well now. I think the most important skills to have are being able to build a network, build relationships, and then sell. And I'm pretty confident in both of those things. Like I said, there's a Post-it note that I have on my computer. It says systems equals scalability equals impact equals dollar signs, big money. And I've never been a details or system person. So one thing that I think could help double my business is really focusing more on creating those systems that lead to scalability.
In 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business, after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
I would like it to say, working with JAC, Jenna Atkinson Consulting, skyrockets millennial success in the workplace.
We're now at the part of the show where you share 3 golden nuggets with us. So, Jenna, what is your favourite quote and how have you applied it?
My favorite quote. This is a little acronym from my mentor, JLD, John Lee Dumas, and it's an acronym for FOCUS, and that's follow one course until success. And for me, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurial people, it's kind of like you have the shiny object syndrome. There's always so many things you could be working on, or this looks cool, or this is exciting right now, or I want to be doing this, and you're jumping all over and then you're going an inch deep and a mile wide instead of an inch wide and a mile deep in any specific area. So one of the things I've really been, no pun intended, focusing on in my business is focus and following one course until success in one area of my business. So if that's growing my podcast audience, if that's working on getting new speaking engagements, if that's revamping my website, if that's creating new content, whatever it is, I try not to multitask. I try to find that one thing that could really have the biggest impact on my business, and then work my butt off on that one segment until I feel confident about where it's at, and then move on to the next piece of work that I need to do.
Do you have a favorite online resource that you can share with us?
One that's really important, I think there's 2 that I use quite a bit. One is, in that same vein of focus, it's called Focus at Will. And it's basically music to put on in the background while you're working that has been proven to help you focus more deeply on the tasks at hand. So that's one. And the second one I would say is called Insightly. And that helps me. It's an online CRM system that helps me manage all my relationships and contacts and communication so I don't miss any follow-ups or tasks that I need to get done on any of my projects. Actually, there's one other one I use quite a bit too. It's called Calendly, CALENDLY.com, and it helps people schedule appointments on your calendar. So that's really helped make my scheduling process with people much more efficient and effective.
What is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
My advice, it's simple, but I think people overlook it a lot, and that's take action. You're never going to learn how to ride a bicycle by sitting in a seminar. You got to get out there, get on the bike, fall down a couple times, and eventually you'll figure it out. So there's a ton of content, a ton of resources that you can research. But if you never take action and, even fail at things a couple of times, you're not going to improve. So every single day, take an action, take big action, something that scares you every single day. Because if you're not feeling that, nervousness about something, you're not taking big enough risks and you're not pushing yourself to the success that you could be at.
Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Jenna's favourite resource or her favourite books, you can find the links on Jenna's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Jenna or Jenna Atkinson in the search box. Jenna, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
No, I think if this has been valuable, definitely jump over to JennaAtkinsonConsulting.com. I have a bunch of free content there that you're more than welcome to check out. Also, growthbombpodcast.com. I do interviews twice a week, strategies for personal and business success. So if you're looking for some more expert tips and advice, those are some great resources to check out.
Okay, Jenna, thank you for that. Jenna, it's been an honour having you on the show. You really have given us some really useful insight into what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and you've inspired us all. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Neil. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.